It is Wednesday. Yay! Happy Wednesday. All right, so I need to turn on the light somewhere. All right, so I think that's a little bit better. So I'm going to give you a moment to get on. Thank you so much for joining me. So when you pop on, let me know who you are and where you're from. My name is Lysandra Everett, and I am here every Monday through Friday, 9 o'clock-ish. It's more of ish today because I received a phone call right at 9 o'clock that I had to take. So here I am. All right. So I am going to share this out really quickly, give you a moment to get on, and then we're going to get going. So what do I talk about? I think that's one of the things that I've never done. So I have a personal development company. It's called A Better You Print. And what I talk about things that have to deal with life. I talk about dealing with your own stuff, your own emotions. I talk business, Tax Tuesdays. I talk taxes. And then just some general question answering on Fridays. So really, I'm about helping you live the best life possible. Live your best life in the most balanced way possible. Okay? Balance is a myth, but that's the term that we use, living the most balanced life possible. Okay, so let me share this out in one or two places, and then we're going to get going. Because like I said, I'm not here all day. I'm usually here about 15, 20 minutes, and then, hey, after that, you got to catch the replay. So once you get on, like I said, let me know who you are, where you're from, and share this out. I would really appreciate that. All right, let me get this out in a few places, and then we're going to get going. Two of my favorite communities. I had my first class last night for the next phase of my tax class, and I tell you what, like I told you yesterday, I'm running on fumes. Yeah, I was right. I'm totally running on fumes, as I didn't get into bed last night until about 11, and then my peanut woke up at about 11:30, 12 o'clock, and it is what it is. So my normally 3:30 wake up time totally came and went, and so I didn't get my workout in, so I'm gonna have to make that up some kind of way. I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. Okay, so I'm good. All right, so let's talk about it. Boundaries. That's why I got my title. Cross that line and see what happens. You remember when you might have been on the playground, there might have been a playground fight, and you got two kids, and one draws a line in the sand and say, you cross this line, I'm gonna punch you in your face, right? But what it was is really establishing a boundary. As long as you stayed on that side of the line, you were fine. But once you come on this side of the line, it's on and popping, right? So when it comes to boundaries, we have a pretty good idea of what boundaries are. But where I think we are failing right now, just as a whole, as a society, is really enforcing those boundaries to really affect positive change on our lives. Let me turn this fan off. It's driving me bananas. Okay. So so what are boundaries? Like I said, we have a pretty good idea, but what is it really? So the word boundary comes from an old English term that meant limits. Okay, so we have limits. So you think about in your life, what are your limits? Have you complained that you've got so much to do and there's no time to do it? And do you feel like you're overwhelmed, like there's just more coming at you than you can handle? And and you think about it, Moses felt this way, right? Moses in the Old Testament, he got to the point where he said, God, why did you give me all these people to bear these burdens? And if that's the way you're going to do business, why don't you just kill me? Okay, he was ready to be taken out the game. Okay, so he felt that overwhelmed feeling too. So overwhelm is not new. Okay, there is nothing new under the sun. All right. But you think about that overwhelm, and I heard somebody say that if you are feeling overwhelmed, it means that you don't have a plan. And I had to chew on that for a little bit. Is it really that you don't have a plan? But then I watched this video with Brene Brown, who is absolutely awesome. And she talked about boundaries, and I had this absolute aha moment. Okay. And I came to realize that the overwhelm that we experience in our lives is not necessarily due to lack of a plan. It is a lack of boundaries. When do you say enough is enough? When do you say this is too much? When do you say when, right? That is the boundary. You think about filling a glass. When you fill the glass, once you get to the top, that's the limit. After that, it's going to overflow. It's going to spill. Hey, Dr. Stephanie. So we have two choices. We can either try to develop a plan to manage the madness, or we can develop a plan to manage the behaviors that causes the madness. So that's where boundaries come in. Boundaries set the limits. They set the expectations of how people will relate to you and vice versa. So just to give you some simple examples, because what happens is when you establish boundaries, you say, this is okay for me in this area. Outside of this, it's not okay. You think about a tennis match. I think about that commercial with John McEnroe. We have a cable commercial showing in our area, and he's a tennis player. And so, he talks about, in tennis, it's either in or it's out, right? Anything in the boundary is good. Outside the line is not good. And, and it really can get, in tennis, it can get kind of ugly with him. It was, he would cut somebody out in a minute. Okay. But the thing about it is that whatever your boundaries, the boundaries that you set are what's okay for you. And when you're relating to people, it's setting those boundaries is with the understanding that it's not something against the other person, but it's something for you, for your own health and your well-being. Because whatever is someone else's priority is not necessarily going to be your priority. So if somebody calls you to say, hey, can you help me plan the church picnic? Well, if you've already got a full schedule, the church picnic is not high on your plan of things to do. So the answer is no. Okay? So that's the thing. One of the key components to establishing boundaries is really knowing what your priority is and what your vision is for your life. It is having a clear understanding of what your time looks like, of how you run your life. Because see, nobody schedules us but us. Okay? And it's just when that we allow other people to cross those boundaries, or we haven't even established boundaries, that it gets kind of ugly. So let me give you an example. You think about, do you have principles that you live by? For example, a principle you live by might be, I don't loan money to anyone. Okay, that is the boundary. And if you set that boundary, and if that's what you live by, then people will eventually know, don't go to her to ask for money because she doesn't lend money. Okay, so when you establish these principles to live by, you establish boundaries. This is something that I did with my kids, and I do it just randomly. I will tell them, name 2 things that you will never do. My son says, Mom, I will never steal. So he has established a boundary. He has established a boundary. He will not steal. So over here in the buying things the right way, everything is cool. Over here in stealing things and swindling people, that's out. Okay, but what happens is we don't even establish the boundaries for ourselves, and then that's when we start to that's when we get overwhelmed, because we haven't established those clear-cut boundaries. Let me give you a few. Emails. If you tell people, listen, if you email me, I might not get to it for 2 or 3 days. You're letting them know that email is not high on your list of priority. However, if there's an emergency, if there is something urgent, text me or call me. Okay, so that establishes a boundary. If it's not urgent, they know to email you. But if it's urgent, they'll send you a text. And even with the text messages, right? Somebody might say, okay, well, Susie fell off her bike and she got a scrape. Okay, is Susie okay? Fantastic. This is not that urgent, right? You have to classify those things for yourself. Another one, don't call my house after 9:00. Now, everybody who knows me knows if you call my house after 9:00, your call is not getting answered. That's just how we live. And we've, had to share that with our families. If you call me at 9:30, I might answer the phone, but it might not be cute. Okay. So, so don't call my house after 9:00. That's just the rule. That's just how we live. And our family deals with us relationally that way. Because see, when you set those boundaries and you stand firm on that, then people will respect that. They will learn how to deal with you in those arena, in those limits. And so that way you have a better handle on your life and it's not being run by everybody else. You have more control of what is coming in and how it's managed, and you're living a better, fuller life based on your terms and not somebody else's. So, you think about boundaries for your family as well. Like my kids, I love my kids. Everybody knows I love my babies. But one thing I learned about my babies, and my husband as well, they'll just ask me stuff. And I will tell them, go look it up. I mean, we got tablets, we got phones, we got computers, we got desktops, we got laptops, we got all this technology. Google is fabulous. There is very little that Google does not know. Okay? So go look it up. But then what is insulting to me is they'll ask me something, I'll tell them to go look it up, but then they don't go look it up. So I'm saying, why was it even important for you to ask me? Well, it was just easier. Well, no, I am not the answer bank. Yeah, I know a lot of random stuff. I get that. There are some things I wonder why I know these things. But the point is that I took the time to learn the information. I went to find out so you can go find out. This is, for me, this is easy peasy. So I'm setting that limit with my family. The other thing, because a lot of times how our family treats us is how we have trained them to treat us. So my husband, and I had to catch myself with this. It was absolutely just, I wanted to smack myself. My husband might call me from the living room and say, hey, can you come here? And I'm thinking, and I would automatically get up to go see what he wanted. And it could be something on CNN that I really just don't care about. And I stopped to think, why am I stopping what I'm doing because he called my name? And so now I start to ask, what is it and can it wait? Because I don't feel like I should have to stop what I'm working on just to go see what he needs, and especially if it's something he can take care of himself. We train our family how to treat us. I had totally and royally spoiled my family. So I created the monster, and so I'm killing the monster, okay? So, so we have to establish those boundaries in our lives to affect change. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed in certain areas of your life, then the first thing to ask yourself is, what boundaries have you established? Have you really set principles for you to live, for yourself to live by? Have you set your priority for your life? If you haven't, then you haven't established boundaries. You haven't drawn your line in the sand and said, as long as you stay over there, you're okay. If you come over here, I'm going to punch you in your face. It's just like the boundaries of your home. A person, just like the postman, right? The postman can come up to a certain point. He can come up to your door, but he can't come in the door without permission. That is the boundary. And that's what our boundaries are for. I might permit you to cross the boundary, but on a regular day, that's not the case. So first is knowing your own priority and your own vision for your life. Two is to set the principles that revolve around that. If you're having financial problems, you set the boundary. I don't loan money to people. I don't loan money that I cannot afford to give away. This is very easy. So when you establish those, and this is what the principles do. It allows you to make the decision before the decision needs to be made. So if you establish the principle, I don't loan money to anyone, then the decision is made when somebody says, hey, can I borrow $20? No, I don't loan money to anyone. The decision is already made. Now, are there people that you might extend that boundary for? Absolutely. But that is an exception to the rule, not the norm. So you have to understand and set those principles, because even if you allow someone to violate that boundary, if you do it once, you better be ready to do it again. So when it comes to violating a boundary, you better be darn sure that it's something that you want to do. You gotta be sure, because like I have my hard and fast 9 o'clock rule. However, my family knows that if it's something that's super important, that yeah, you can call me at 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm going to answer the phone. But if I answer the phone at 2 o'clock in the morning and you talking some mess, then you and I are going to have some words when I'm conscious. Right? So when you set your boundaries, if you set those hard and fast and there's a principle that you can live by, it helps you make the decision before it needs to be made. So as there's no emotion involved, there's no manipulation involved. Hey, this is just the rule I live by. The other person, if they respect you, they're going to respect your boundaries. That's just the way it is. Because listen, you respect other people's boundaries. So why would you not expect them to respect yours? Okay, so that's what boundaries are all about, guys. It's really about setting the expectations of how you're going to relate to people. It's about being proactive and aware of how you're managing your own life. And once you do that, I promise you, you will start to see less and less of the overwhelm, because you know what you will say yes to and you know what you'll say no to. Everybody's going to come to you and ask you to do something. They're going to come to you to ask you to do something because they feel like they can't do it themselves. They don't want to do it themselves, or, they just don't want to. And so I ask questions like, if you didn't know me, what would you do? Have you called so-and-so? I give other options if it's just not something that I want to do or it's not within my capacity to do. And so believe me, look, this is an extra tidbit, right? If you start with no, when people come to you with stuff, it's a lot easier to turn a no into a yes than a yes into a no. So when someone comes to you and asks you to help with something, no, I'm sorry, I'm obligated to something else right now. And then you might think, you know what? Yeah, I can do that. So, hey, Susie, yeah, I can go with you to Miss Johnson's house on Tuesday. So you can turn that no into a yes, other than, hey, you know what? I thought I was going to Miss Johnson's house on Tuesday, but I don't want to go. So no. So you see what I mean? So it's a lot easier to start with no and then turn that into a yes than to say yes to everything and then realize you're dropping the ball everywhere. So that's the extra tip. Okay? So listen, set those boundaries. Stop living in overwhelm. You don't have to. Okay? Because if Moses felt like he wanted to die, I know. I know that's how we feel too. Because we feel like there's no way I can keep going like this. But if you establish those boundaries, if you set those principles, then you can tread water all day long. Okay? Because it's on your terms. All right. So thanks a lot for tuning in. I really hope this helps you out. Hey, Erica. Hey, Erica. Yeah, you late, girl, because I'm signing off, but this is a good one, so I hope you listen to the replay. Okay, so like I said, I'm here Monday through Friday-ish, and I'm still looking for a name for my show. I have an idea. I do have an idea, but I'm still looking and thinking about it. But anywho, make sure you subscribe to my live notifications, and I will see you tomorrow, 9 o'clock-ish. All right, I gotta go. See you next time. Bye.